Okay, everybody, this is it. Angela Snyder.
I just exhaled. We made it.
We've made it to the final section, and she titled part 4, Feeling Our Way Forward. And I love that because it's time to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like this last section, those last chunk of chapters, it was the meat of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was the how-to. It was like, okay, here's what we need to do.
That felt like junior year, and this feels
Yes,
like senior year.
that's
when you're
right.
like, okay,
Yeah.
we're ready to walk. We're ready
We
for
are.
what's next.
We are. Okay, so here we go, guys. This isn't going to be as long because it's just 3 little chapters, and the last one is very short.
But it's so good.
But it's so good. Okay. Also, for those of you all that listen to the podcast, this environment may look a little familiar to you.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. We're in the recording studio at Union University. We like to keep y'all on your toes as to where we are.
We're like, where's Waldo?
Where's Waldo? Where are we recording this week?
Angela threw a wrench in the schedule, and now my watch is talking.
Okay.
Anyway. Carry on.
Here we are, everybody. Welcome to the show. All right. Chapter 13 is titled Dealing with Stubborn Nuts. Okay. All right. Y'all know how I feel about this very first paragraph because it's got our 3 favorite words that we we talked about previously. So I'm just going to read this paragraph to help us set the stage, okay? So often the reason we fall into the emotional traps of controlling our feelings, coping instead of acknowledging our feelings at all, and concealing our feelings is that the memories behind those feelings are so terribly triggering that we're momentarily paralyzed, unsure what to do. At the bottom of this page, and this is page 177, she says, sometimes our heavy feelings are justified. Maybe we've experienced a hard diagnosis or a broken marriage or the abandonment of a parent or financial devastation. And sometimes they aren't even necessarily rooted in reality. But either way, your feelings are real. And there are some tangible steps you can take to navigate them in a healthy way. And I love this because I love real, I love practical. I love when I can get my mind around it. And I've said this to you all, if you're getting the emails, if you're on that list, I've said this time and time again. 2 things can be happening here. When you read this, you're like, I know this. This isn't anything like revolutionary. It seems so simple and basic, and it is theoretically, but it wouldn't require a book if we were just all doing it.
We can know the thing and never do the thing.
And never do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the fact that she really grounds us and roots us in concepts, ideas, practices, disciplines that we know. We just have to do them. We have to implement them. And that's why this whole section is feeling our way forward. Okay. So the very first thing that she tells us on page 179, begin with your body. And she reminds us, and we do too, Angela and I talk about things like this all the time. Go to your doctor, get a physical, make sure that you understand where your body is, what's happening in this current season of life. And if you haven't done that, please do that. That's the best, wisest, healthiest place to start, is understand where you are physically. And so she says, go get checked out. Here's why. It's because we change. Hello?
That's so humbling.
It's so humbling. It's humbling in every level. It's humbling from when you get on the scale level. It's humbling when they, take all those vials of blood, and then that blood comes back and tells you things about yourself that may or may not be the same as they were the last time you had that done. Like, you change as human beings.
We can't see without our readers.
Hello. Both of us have them on. And so, anyway, I appreciate that. And she says also, even if you have no obvious symptoms of disease, dysfunction, or distress, you cannot assume that all is well beneath your skin, my friend. Things are fine until they are not. Am I right? So true. Okay, flip the page on page 180 towards the bottom, beginning in that bold section. It's so basic, you all, but we need to consider these things. We need to ask these things of ourselves and you. She says, even if there's nothing measurably wrong in your body, there are so many ways most of us could choose to take better care of ourselves. Sometimes we need medicine for depression and anxiety, and praise God that it exists. But before her primary care doctor, who is a believer, will prescribe such medications, she has a list of questions. Her doctor has a list of questions about the things we should try first. Here are a few, along with brief notes from me about why each of these questions about our physical and spiritual lives is relevant to our emotional well-being. Because remember, we are one whole creature, mentally, physically, spiritually. And how we can neglect one so quickly is just a little scary. Okay, so the first bullet point, are you moving your body every day? Are you sharing what is difficult with friends and family? That heals neural pathways. Again, I wish we could spend time talking about that. And Angela and I do that a lot. We both are verbal processors. We share a lot with each other, but not everybody has that person in their life to be able to do that with. And that's a whole another thing that you need to consider. Who are your people? And if you don't have that person, then begin to pray for that person. And if you feel like you do have that person, are you able to share difficult situations with them? Because it's healing. Physiologically, it's healing. Mind-blowing to me. Love how the Lord made our bodies. All right, how much alcohol are you drinking? Because it depletes dopamine. Wish we could talk about that. Are you eating a balanced diet? No, Angela, I'm not, but I consider it every day about what am I putting in. Are you spending time with Jesus? I love that her doctor asks these questions. Okay, so she goes on to break down some other practical next steps that can be life-changing. And again, this is not new, but it's so very important in our emotional health. We need to take a break from screens.
Do you remember, was it
Yes.
last year or 2 years ago in July when we took a break from social media? I was very aware of the fact that July 1st is 2
Coming
weeks.
up.
I can't say I'll be completely off, but I've got a goal to very much minimize.
And take your
phone time.
notifications off. Just turn all your notifications off. Keep the app there if you want to, because there is a proper time to be on your phone. And
Just being aware.
Right.
I just mindlessly go there
Right.
and don't need to.
She says on page 183 in regards to the screen time, she says, with all our screen time, we are numbing ourselves to pain and therefore numbing ourselves to life. We are losing how to feel sad and angry and how to feel wonder and joy. We have seen it all and felt it all and find ourselves just looking for the next hit of adrenaline instead of deep connection in our pain and even our joy.
Wow.
The second thing she encourages us to do, which just, I could not tell you the last time I've done this. Maybe in the car from home to work. I don't know. Sit in silence.
I always have to have something. Carl one day was like, can you not just be quiet? I have to have a podcast on or something. Noise. It's a place to just escape.
She says in this paragraph below the sit in silence on page 183, French mathematician Blaise Pascal once said that all of the unhappiness of men arises from one single fact, that they cannot stay quietly in their own chamber. To which I feel like replying, Blaise, you said that nearly 400 years ago. You have no idea how bad things have gotten. Flipping over to page 184, she shares something else that somebody else has written. Linda Stone coined the phrase continuous partial attention.
I've never heard that before.
Which is it's the truth. She describes it as an always on, anywhere, anytime, any place behavior that creates an artificial sense of crisis. We are always in high alert. We are demanding multiple cognitively complex actions from ourselves. We are reaching to keep a top priority in focus while at the same time, scanning the periphery to see if we're missing other opportunities. If we are, our very fickle attention shifts focus. What's ringing? Who is it? How many emails? What's on my list? What time is it in Bangladesh? Like, what? Our poor little brains,
it's exhausting,
are out of control.
I do this
all the time, and we will be prideful about it and say that we're wonderful multitaskers.
Oh, there's no such thing.
Terrible. So, when was the last time you sat in silence? Build that in. Just, at some point in your day, like when I go home today, just sit in silence in my car. I know that there's things happening around me, but just let my brain rest for a second. Okay, number 3, another one we talk about all the time on the podcast. Eat smart and drink water. I know. I love what she says on page 185 in the middle. She says, I know it's no fun to give up the foods we love, but unless those foods simultaneously love us back, they won't serve us well over time. That's a lovely way to consider, I love that food, but does that food love me back? If not, just consider, do you need to eat it? And then the lovely dehydration conversation. So whatever your weight is, cut that in half, and that's how many ounces you're supposed to drink a day. I failed that today. Failed it yesterday. Y'all know I'm not a big drinker.
It's hard.
I'm just not a big drinker. I've got to make an adjustment with that. Number 4, our absolute favorite, move and get yourself outside. Whenever you feel like you're getting tangled up emotionally, take a walk. We both will do that without even hardly thinking. Like, it's just a reaction to how I'm feeling. I need to go for a walk, or I need to go work.
Escape.
It's a healthy escape. That's exactly what it is.
My brain starts firing again.
Yes.
When I get outside and walk.
Yes. Flip the page on page 186. This is an also interesting, brand new, had not heard of a nature deficit disorder. That we are missing contact with the natural world. And she goes on to explain, think about your day.
I love a patio, and my family loves to make fun of me. But if we're at a restaurant with a patio and it's 500 degrees, I want to sit outside. But we're inside under fluorescent lights.
All the time.
All the time.
You get in your car, you go to work. You sit inside, you get in your car, you go somewhere else, sit inside.
I'm going to tell them it's my NDD. It's my nature deficit disorder.
We have a nature NDD. Yes, you do, everybody. We all have it. And so, again, it's not new. I think you just need to consider these very doable, not easy, because go back to the dehydration factor that I have going on. Like, it's just start here. Let's actually implement these things.
Well, like she says, just 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week of moderate, like brisk walking reduces the risk of depressive symptoms and the chances of major depression. That's doable.
God made our bodies to move, not to sit.
Yeah.
So there's that. I don't know what that looks like for you, but there's that. And then
I have mixed feelings about this next one.
I know. Listen. We both do, because it's a blessing and a curse. And she tells us that we need to take a nap. I love a good nap. I often need a nap. But anybody else wake up from a nap and you're the worst human being that ever lived.
I've got to find that sweet spot.
I know.
Of just enough time.
What is it?
I think it's around 20 or 25 minutes.
See, that to me becomes, yes. For me, past 20 minutes, I'm evil. Like, it needs to be more like 15, but who takes a 15-minute nap?
Yeah.
Okay, so she says on the top of page 187 in regards to these naps, so many of our problems are solvable. This is how we need to view it. If we just make better choices to align our lives with our God-given limitations and adopt healthy practices. So maybe we don't need to take a nap. Maybe we need to sit in silence. Maybe we need to just go for a walk. Like, if the nap is so disruptive and it affects your night's sleep, There's a time when you need a nap. I slept for 4 hours last night. I need to take care of myself in that way.
Well, I've set a timer before at my office for 5 minutes and gone to my office and sat in the dark for 5 minutes. And it felt like an hour.
I need to do that.
Yeah, it's not that long, but it really can. I put myself in timeout.
Yeah.
When you're little, you don't want timeout.
Right.
You don't want an early bedtime. You don't want nap time. And all these things, I'm like, please let me have that.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, then the last section, the only thing I want to say about it is she talks about the fact that it's okay to ask for help, professional help. We need to be able to do that. We don't need to be prideful in the fact that I am stuffing all this in and I'm good. No, we need to address what's going on with us emotionally. And it's okay if you need to get help.
We have.
Oh, love it.
We love therapy.
Love it. On page 191, she says, we can be healthier than we are today. By God's grace, we can be transformed. And I wrote out to the side, but do we want to be? Because again, we can read this and say, yes, I do want to be healthy. I do want to be transformed. But it's like we've talked about before in all kinds of things, like with our kids. You know, if you have kids and you're considering, you feel like something's up with my kid and I can't quite put my finger on it, and you ask the Lord to bring it to the light. And if you ask the Lord to help you to bring something up, to acknowledge it, to name it, to feel it, whatever. Okay, well, I've got to do that then. If it's brought to the light and I feel this way, I don't need to be afraid of what's surfacing. And that's where it gets harder. And that's why I'm thankful that she, again, moves us slowly through this so that we can consider just these simple disciplines. But apparently, it works. It works. Okay, so do we want to be healthy? Yes,
like
we do.
Jesus saying, do you want to be well?
That's right. Do you want to be well? I do want to be well. And you do too. Or
But we
you
have
wouldn't
to move our feet.
Yeah, we've got to move our feet. Okay, chapter 14.
Free to feel.
Are we?
Are we? Are we free to feel? I love this chapter. On page 194, she's talking about, this is all in the context of her just wrestling some things out and asking if you can relate. And she was just in this funky place. And she's talking about how her group came over and she's surrounded by her safe people and people she's done life with for years. And they were asked the questions, how has the past year changed you? How do you need God to show up for you in the next 3 months? Great question.
I love those two questions so much that I'm making a note of them to start asking college students this question, because that it's so important on so many levels. Those are brilliant questions.
So good. And then she goes on in the middle of 194 to say, early in this book, I told you I'm different from when I started this journey. And this is where I started going, yes, me too, me too. I've learned that emotions are not the enemy. Emotions are the gift. Emotions are meant to pull us into God and each other. And because of that, where I would have normally postured a vague, simple answer to where I needed God to show up for me, instead, I broke down with these people who loved me. And she was honest and she was vulnerable and it was messy. And she said, but guess what? Like, she said embarrassing things and it was awkward. But at the end, she said they hugged me, they listened. The men and the women shared their hard things. And her sister-in-law at the end said, I feel better. Do you? And she did. She said, I actually did. And her vision is for us to be free and to be free to share the feelings, free to feel, free to run into God's presence with it all. Going from all knotted and tangled up to the adventurous life God has, full of joy and fear and anger and sadness and all of it.
But you know what? This is what we do, though, because we just did this morning.
We need to talk about that.
If you're not careful, you will do that. We talked about this before. You'll open up, you'll be vulnerable, and then you're either embarrassed by what you said, you question, you apologize, like, I'm so sorry, I don't know what was wrong with me, I'm really okay. And it's like, stop it. and then also maybe the group or the person doesn't respond in the way that you want them to. And so then
what?
Then what? All that mess is happening in your brain.
Yes. And for 10 years, we've walked side by side in life and shared so many things with each other. But this morning, I shared with Fran where God's opened my eyes to a struggle that I have been blind to. I've got this blind spot. I'm aware of it. I tell Fran about it, and then I'm watching the phone like, is she going to Voxer me back? And then she did, and then I was scared to hit the button. I was like, what is she going to say? Is she going to say, you're fired from being my friend? I'm not doing a podcast with you. You're a sinner.
What's wrong with you?
What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But I mean, I was able to say, here's where I'm aware that I'm struggling. I want you to start, and I'll just like, it's something that another good friend of ours was saying, it's the sin behind the sin of like, why do I feel inadequate and like I have to perform and strive and earn God's love? But the sin behind the sin is I'm trying to please men more than God.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that's so gross. That's so embarrassing.
So gross.
It's so horrible.
But we all do it.
We all do it. But it's like when my eyes were open to it yesterday, I thought, oh my gosh, like, why have I not been aware of this? Have I been dealing with this all along and I thought I was better? Is it just now creeping back in? None of that really matters, but I'm aware of it. I want help for it. I told Fran, yesterday I took every snack that Sam's Club sold to be the ultimate team mom at Cole's state tournament. And yesterday I thought, okay, am I doing this to serve this team humbly? Or am I doing this so every one of their parents and these teenagers will love me more and say, oh my gosh, you're so awesome. You're so amazing. Look what you did. So I need Fran to ask me when I do these things, where is your heart? What is your motive? What is going on? Because I need to ask myself. I need you to ask me. I don't want that to separate me from the best that God has for me.
Well, and I said to her that we all of us, we want to be seen. We want to be recognized. We want to be acknowledged. But is it, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that, is it coming from a pure place of just serving?
What is the condition of my heart?
What is the condition of my heart? What's my motive here?
Yes.
Is my motive to honestly serve the Lord? Or is it so that you will say, Fran, you are so awesome. You're doing a great job. I'm so proud of you. And all of those things could be real.
That's
and
right.
You mean them.
Yep.
But I'm telling you the thing because I need that.
And it can become, the devil takes what's true and twist it just enough to get between us and become an idol of whatever it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, thankfully, I had that beautiful moment. And then here we are in this chapter.
Yeah,
Isn't the Lord kind like that?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
196, she talks about getting unstuck, finding encouragement to stay the course. Even the most stuck person can get unstuck. Isn't that hopeful? On 198, she talks about Eugene Peterson, who wrote The Message. Love that so much. And he wrote so beautifully. She quotes him, "The aim of the person of faith is to live as deeply and thoroughly as possible, to deal with the reality of life, discover truth, create beauty, act out love."
I want that framed in my office.
So beautiful. This is living. This is the redemptive work of God through us on earth, to feel it all, to notice it, name it, and issue the hope of God to a desperate world. And then she jokes that she wanted to name this book $10,000 worth of counseling.
Which very well could have been.
It kind of is. So she says, to help you feel seen, navigate the vast, wild ocean of your emotions, to reconnect you to your people and God as you do it. These are lofty goals and a very lofty subject. And she is saying, you know, I want to leave you all with a few gifts to notice as we do grow in our emotional health. So the first gift is that we have hope again. The enemy's goal is for us to feel hopeless. We may have difficult circumstances, but we are never helpless. And she says, I invite you to feel your feelings and remember they do not have authority over you. You have authority over your feelings because of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I was talking to somebody today and we were acknowledging the fact that we are both people that can tap into the very soft, tender, the weepy side of our emotions. Like I can cry at the drop of a hat, no problem. But what I don't know what to do with is anger. because I don't know how to process it. So when I become angry, I literally don't know what to do with it.
It's interesting.
And
We need a punching bag.
Well, I told her, I shared a story of years ago. I was in just a wild, incredibly difficult situation, and I was feeling the tension of complete sadness coupled with devastating, just shock, anger, the whole thing. And I didn't know I could cry easily, but I didn't know what to do with the anger. And a friend took me to a place that had these punching bags, and just
for real.
And she said, I put these gloves on, and she just walked me through some slow, just learning how to punch. And then she just said, okay, do whatever you want to do.
We need Chesney. We need Miss MMA.
For the next 15 minutes. And I just physically got that aggression and that anger out. And so anyway,
How did you feel after?
Well, it felt awkward because physically I didn't know what to do. And then mentally, I just did not know how to do this. I don't yell at people. I don't have a temper. I literally stuff all of that inside. So anyway, I said to this person, I said, don't neglect the anger. When you feel that, don't neglect it. Now, I gave her my suggestion of like, this is what I did once, but that was a long time ago. Like,
go outside and scream.
Yeah, I told her, I was like, get in your car and scream. I don't know, but we can't ignore it. That was my point.
But like, if I got in my car and you were like, okay, nobody's listening, scream. I don't know, like that. Even if it's just you alone.
Yeah.
It's awkward.
It is.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
is.
All right. Gift number 2. We grow in grace toward ourselves and others. If you have not read The Ragamuffin Gospel by Brennan Manning.
So good.
So
it's been a
good.
minute since I've read
I know.
that.
I need to get that back out.
Mm-hmm.
But he had the demon of addiction as his struggle up until the day that he died. And people would ask him, how can you love Jesus as much as you do while also choosing to drink until you pass out drunk? And those are two hard things to reconcile. And she says, I bet he wished he could pick one or the other. But he had a phrase he would say very humbly, not out of pride or sarcasm or rudely, but he would say, these things happen. And what she's meaning by including that is life is complicated, it's messy, there's confusion and curiosity and pain. And she says on way too many occasions we identify less with Jesus' call to perfect holiness than we do with Paul's lament over doing what he didn't want to do and then not doing what he did want to do. These things happen. And she says, although this lovely lunacy we call life is absolutely imperfect, don't we still long to live it? Don't we still try to fly? My point is, and she goes on page 202, all of this is clunky, it's awkward, it's hard, but it will get better over time. And I love that she says this, like, you will misspeak and people will be misunderstood and somebody will share a confidential update. And, you know, there's risk and it's messy, but it will get better. We're broken people in a broken world, and it's going to get messy, literally. We're not going to do it well or right all the time, but it does get easier.
And if you're young or you have young people around you, I also shared with this same person that I remember being in my 20s, probably early 30s, and I'm a glass half full kind of gal. Very optimistic, always hopeful, believe, yes, we can do that. Why can we not do that? Like, that's just how I'm made. And so when people older, like if people in their 50s would say, oh, life is hard, you're going to get beat up, you know, sin is everywhere. And I would just be like, no, what? No, I don't understand, because I hadn't experienced, I had experienced it. I just didn't understand it in my youth. But you have to have some awareness and be in tune with the greater world and not be afraid of what's happening around you. We can't live over here in La La Land. Like,
Even though I'd love to.
Even though I prefer that. And sometimes I do run away and escape to La La Land because that's easier. That's my coping skill, which I know is one of those C's. I can't do that. But if we can take that and put it alongside all the truth and the hope of Christ, then, okay, It's going to be okay. We can do this. We really can do this because we ourselves are broken people, a part of a very broken world. Don't be hopeless in that.
Right.
Be hopeful that you can play a part of becoming healthy to make a difference in the broken world.
In this world, we will have trouble,
Yes.
but take heart.
That's
Jesus
right.
has overcome the world.
That's right.
Okay, gift number 3, we get God.
Mm-hmm.
The truth about dealing with our feelings is if we don't take them to God, they will likely overtake us.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
They don't have to overtake us. We can take these feelings to God. On 204, she says it's absolutely not irresponsible to feel our emotions fully if those emotions have been surrendered to God. There is no such thing as a negative emotion if we are careful to surrender every emotion to Him. We do not need to fear acting in an inappropriate manner if as soon as we experience the emotion, we turn to God and say, please help. And that goes back to, we talked in a prior video about, our emotions sin. They can cause us to sin, but it's our response and what we do with that. And when we're handing it to Him, going, please help me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel this anger. I feel this, whatever it is. Help me with it. He will. He will. On 205, she says, we're okay. We're okay. Everything will be just fine. God doesn't ask us to stop being afraid or concerned or frustrated or angry or sad. He simply asks us to stick close to His side. And she included one of our favorite Psalms, Psalm 91, verses 1 through 4 on page 205. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. We really are under His wings, all tucked in. Think about the swans, safe and sound. And in that place of refuge, we can feel anything we need to feel. He's holding us, letting us feel. So beautiful. Okay.
That's a safe place to be.
Yes.
It's not a scary place. It's
Nope.
a very safe place to
I
be.
love that imagery. Gift number 4, this one hit home. We control what we can, and we stop trying to control the things we cannot. And this goes back to get out of your head. Before you have a thought, you have a feeling, an abstract sense that something is right or wrong, and that feeling can't be wished away or prayed away. It must come up to the surface and be faced, seen, soothed, made to feel safe. And as that happens, we heal and our thoughts change too. We have dominion and God-given authority over our minds. And this all, I've talked about the adult children group that I'm part of that meets weekly. We have a version of the Serenity Prayer. She has the AA Serenity Prayer on 206. But the one that we use is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me. So it's a little bit different, but all this really hits home with me. And she says some of life we can control, but much of it we cannot. Some thoughts we can interrupt, and some feelings will not go away no matter what we do. God wants to be in all of it with us, in the boat on the ocean, navigating it all. I just wanted to pause right there.
Take a deep breath, everybody.
Goodness gracious. And then gift number 5, and I'm kind of in between. Like, I can feel this starting back in my life after a period of not feeling creative at all. But gift number 5 is we can start creating again. And at the bottom of page 207, she quotes her counselor saying, one of the ways to tell we're starting to make progress in our emotional healing is that we will start creating again. I noticed this last summer we did the social media, or 2 years ago? When we were off social media for a month, my brain all of a sudden was alive again. And I was thinking things that I hadn't thought in
It's
such
like there's room in there again.
capacity. Yeah, right? It's like I've closed all those open tabs and go,
Cleaned out the
clean
closet.
slate. No more clutter, no more brain noise. When we're stuck in a cycle of judging and fighting back our emotions, controlling them, turning to coping mechanisms, or concealing them to try to get by, all of our energy gets used up in the process, and we have no energy left to live and create.
I don't want that life.
When I'm numbed out on Netflix, I'm sure not hearing from Jesus.
You do not sit at Netflix or any other destructive behavior for you, and at the end of it go, man, I'm ready to conquer
I'm
the
on that
world.
spiritual mountaintop.
No,
No,
no.
no. All the energy we were wasting is finally available for us to contribute something beautiful to the world. And on 209, she says, ready to go. Come on, God, bring it. God wants to go wild through us and for us. But if we ignore or get tangled in the ropes meant to bring him and others close to us, we are missing all of it. The creating, the loving, the peace, the connection, the hope, the very best parts of our short life here. We will be made whole and free and well in heaven. That promise is coming for those who trust Jesus. But I want that now. I want that wholeness and freedom for us here. If it is ours to have, and it is.
And it is. And you don't know how long you've got on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have no idea what God has for you. And so I want this sooner than later.
And it's available.
And it's available.
And the only person stopping us is us.
Is us. Okay, she wraps it up beautifully. Chapter 15, your feelings are worth fighting for. There's just a few things that I want to touch on here as we conclude. And right off the bat, on page 210, the very beginning, she says, there is no hard and fast formula for untangling our emotions, but there is progress we can make, and the gifts of emotional health I described in the preceding chapter can assure us that we're on the right path. It is a path worth following. It's that path that leads to wholeheartedness, to emotional sturdiness. I loved those two words together, as well as peace. Flip over.
Real quick before we do that next paragraph, y'all, this is one of the things I'll remember
I
forever.
know. I wanted to go here because I thought if this isn't Angela, I don't know what is.
I want to go from fix it, Angela, to feel it, Angela. And I'll never forget fix it, Jesus, being feel it, Jesus with Lazarus.
Yeah.
And Mary and Martha.
And it's just, and on a parenting level, it's our nature to want to fix things for our kids, and it's doing way more harm than good.
Well, if God's not doing that for me, why am I doing that for my kids if I'm supposed to be like Jesus?
Right. I know.
Anyway.
I know. Okay. All right. Flip over to page 212, and at the bottom, it kind of piggybacks on some of the things that you were just saying in the previous chapter. But to not be afraid of God, to rest in him and to trust him as you're going through this and feeling all that you're feeling. And I love it because she says he's big enough to hold these things. As you're sheltered under the Most High in that little crevice, that little nook and cranny under his wing.
Under that big, strong wing.
That big, strong wing. He's big enough to hold those things.
What a visual.
Of the entire world, of all of humanity. Our faith is big enough to hope in the midst of those things. And he built us with the capacity to carry joy, sadness, fear, anger, and more all at the same time. The goal is not to eliminate those feelings. The capacity is there as human beings with the power of the Holy Spirit inside of us to carry that alongside him, with him, because of him. We can transform. Do we want to? Do we want
to be well?
Yes. We do. And she goes on to say at the bottom of page 213, this process isn't as organized as I've made it sound. And then you're like, hang on a minute.
It's a big squiggle.
It is a big squiggle.
It's a knot.
And I'm okay with that. And I think you have to sit here at the end and really evaluate this whole thing and ask yourselves just some of those basic questions. Do I want to be well? Am I willing to make these very simple, practical, but yet very transformative choices so that I can begin to be different and not be afraid of what I'm feeling in that moment? Because we all know it's not rainbows and butterflies all the time, and it's messy. Okay, page 214, the very end. I'm just going to read these final paragraphs to us. I don't need to make sense of it all, and I do not need to judge it. I can live in the tension of pain and happiness all in a given hour. I can laugh and cry all in a given hour, and all of that equals a full life that I wouldn't want to miss. I feel again. Doing so has given me my greatest friendships and conversations and led to my greatest hope. which is for that future day when every tear will be dried and every wrong will be made right. Every pain will be healed for eternity because our ultimate connection will be fulfilled with God and with each other if we know Him. One day we'll understand it all. We'll see it all as He sees it. In the meantime, we get God and each other and a chance to live this one life with hearts whole, living, beating, feeling, full, connected to God and to each other. This is the life I want. This is the life He wants for you. And remember when we got together for that very first video session, she opens up the book with the verse I love so much. Ezekiel 36:26 says, He promises this to us. I will give you a new heart and a new spirit I will put within you. I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. And that's telling us one that's beating and alive and feeling things to its fullness and not trying to control, cope, and conceal. So again, I think this is a book worth referring back to a lot. It's not one that you read and just go, okay, got it. I'm good. Like you're going to want to go back to it and refer to it and give it to people.
It's a handbook.
It's a handbook. And anyway, we've loved it.
Here's the difference in Fran and Angela. My book has been through war. Probably in the floorboard of my car. I don't know where the cover is, but that's okay.
I'll say this. I haven't told you this, Angela. One of my boys has asked to read this.
Nice.
And so we talked about it's harder for boys to navigate some of this because of just society teaching them.
You're such a good mama.
Well, I pulled something out of it to give to him. And I said to him, I'd love for you to read this if you want to, or listen to it on Audible. And after a couple of conversations later, he said, no, I'd like to read it when you're done. And I said, okay. So give it away to your children. Talk about it as you're parenting, doing friendships, all of it. Cannot recommend it enough.
Meredith, thank you.
Meredith, you are a rock star. Meredith has helped us so much on the behind the scenes. She's phenomenal. Everybody needs a Meredith in their life. Okay, anything else?
I'm kind of sad.
I know, we love you guys.
I'm excited to go be healthy.
I know.
Feel all my feelings.
Let's go get healthy. The podcast will resume mid-August, and y'all just enjoy the rest of your summer. We love you so much. Goodbye.